I'm so glad to see you all this morning. There are so many faces in the room that I love. And I think it's very important that you're here and that we continue this, because more and more it's clear we're going to have to make our own culture. New York Times Magazine has an article about Hollywood in which the Hollywoods decided that the people with the main buying power are the children about 14 to 20. So the only actresses they're hiring now are like 21-year-olds who look 16. They're making one more movie about high school after another. I mean, that's how you lose a civilization. You just dumb it way down. Instead of asking the high school kids to see what adult culture is like, they force the adults to see what the child culture is like. So we're going to have to make our own culture in the middle of a rapidly disintegrating. To me, it's something that I didn't feel 10 years ago. I didn't feel it the same way. So thinking about the masculine, there are 6 little things I thought about. First of all, what's your relation to your mother like? Have you gone through that? William Blake says, that the mother is the one that's entangled us in this life, and we're not sure it was a good idea. And she's responsible. She doesn't seem to know this. So there's a big thing going there between your anger against your mother and your gratitude towards your mother. And somehow it's easier with some mothers than others, but it doesn't matter. It's a part of the whole masculine psyche, and you need to spend time on it. When you do it is your business, but sooner or later it's got to be done. And then how about your relationship with your father? I mean, the father stands for completion, stands for, connection with the world, accomplishing something in the world, and getting off your ass, straight lines. So how are you with your father? There's more and more, with me, I can just tell you very swiftly, my father was a farmer and he was a good one, but my brother was older and he wanted to be a farmer, and so my father and my brother made a connection with each other, and I was left. The only one left was my mother. So it is good that she adopted me, so to speak. I became her son. I'm a mother's son, not a father's son. So, because I did Iron John, who says, "Oh God, he just only cares about his men." I said, "No, and on the contrary, I taught women for years, and I had to work my way into the men's world. I had to work into things that my brother would have known intuitively. I had to figure out, and I was afraid of men, and so so this has been a long, slow process with me." And I love the whole kind of thing. I just love this, getting to know men better. And my life would have been very different if I had been the favorite of my father. But so what? So he had a shitty childhood. So what? Maybe you'll have better luck next time. But I seem to have had the luck that was right for me anyway, because my mother was the one who loved poetry and taught me that, and that's the way I proceeded through the world. And if my father had been the one, I probably would not have touched it. Is that right? Probably. So we got to do a lot in relation to the father, and it keeps coming back. It keeps coming back. And I've done a whole book of poems on my father, and he keeps coming back. But so let's say that's the second one. First one's a mother, second one's a father. And the third one we would say, well, suppose you've been abused. How does that settle? How does that work with the thing with your mother or your father? And if you meet someone who says, I haven't been abused, get a camera. You're looking at a real liar, man. It's an opportunity to take a picture of a real liar. Oh, my father was wonderful. My mother was wonderful. Jesus Christ. Is that right? It's a part of the life on this planet that you're going to get abused in a way, that you're going to be born very sensitive, and then you got these nuts around you. Some of them have hands to slap you with, some of them have bigger things, and what do you do with that? And then the fourth one I want to mention is the effort in going with your father and your mother and then the whole question of abuse is to become an adult. That's the aim of the whole thing, to become an adult. It's more and more rare in the United States. But in some part of us, we're all adults. Is that right? Some part of us we're not. We're still children. So then the question is, suppose you're an adult and then you have a little conversation with your wife and then you're 6 years old again. And ever happened to you? And it's not only your wife, could be anybody. Minister, a professor, shit. So that's a very important thing, and I'm so glad that that's finally being talked about, because there are 100 ways in which we can't remain an adult. We can't do it. It's too much. You can't expect it of yourself anyway. So it's nice to have clear examples of that and know that you're not the only one. So, and then the fifth one I want to mention is, are there any stages you pass on the way from being a child to being an adult? Has anyone thought about that? So when you pass over, you say, yeah, I remember that. Well, as you know, the Native Americans will take a young boy out and put him in Devil's Tower or something and leave him there for 4 days without food or water. Give him a little bit of water or so and see what happens. As you know, one of the things that happens sometimes is a bear or an eagle comes. So you want to be an adult, huh? Well, I'm an adult eagle. What do you want to know? These things happen. And the Native American boy goes back and he knows something that none of us know. A couple of things. One, he has passed through a time in which a child could not have survived 4 days without food or water. And in that time, an animal came to be with him. But that's an experience that hundreds of thousands of men have had all through history. And we've lost it. We've lost it. So that's the fifth one. The whole question of initiation or whatever it is never too late to start. Don't think just because you're 65 that you're free of it. Because, a minute later you're 12. So, all right, the sixth one I want to talk about in relation to masculine is your relation to the eternal world. And that's what I'm going to talk about. Your relation to the eternal world. To the world of eternity. That was always considered something extremely powerful in masculine life. And as you know, the so-called Aborigines in Australia, that's their whole life is connected with the eternal world. They believe eternal lines are laid down all over Australia. Every time they walk, they're singing a song of that part for that eternal being who laid down that particular line. So when they walk, they're in touch with a whole series of eternal beings. Oh, and that makes them, whoa. So the Australians tried to kill them all. Because there's nobody more literalistic than an Australian. They're like a degenerated Englishman. So, and oddly, the Americans have much more of that than the English. It's possible we haven't killed as many people as the English have. Maybe that's the reason. I mean, they've been killing people for years. It's called the Empire. They're not satisfied yet. So I'm going to give you a poem. Do you remember the night when Abraham first called to the stars? This is a story from the Quran that's not in the Old Testament. Do you remember the night when Abraham first called to the stars? When he saw Saturn, he cried, "You are my Lord." How happy he was. When the dawn star rose, he cried, "You are my Lord." How destroyed he was when he saw them set. Friends, he is like us. We take as our Lord the stars that go down. We are faithful companions of the unfaithful stars. We are diggers like badgers. We love to feel the dirt flying out from behind our hind claws. And no one can convince us that mud Isn't that beautiful? It is our badger soul that thinks so. We are ready to spend the rest of our lives walking with muddy shoes in the wet fields. We stand in the onion fields looking up at the night. My heart is a calm potato by day and a weeping, abandoned woman by night. Friends, tell me what to do, since I am a man in love with the setting stars. So I read it at a poetry festival in Tucson recently, and I went out in the lobby, and a man came up to me with a woman, and he said, "Are you putting yourself down when you say that you're in love with the setting stars?" And his wife said, "No, you idiot!" And I thought about that, and I said, no, I mean, there are the eternal stars. Those are the ones the saints love. I'm not there. I like the setting stars, the ones that come up and go down. The ones that come up and go, they're called the planets, but that's a bad word. Setting stars is better. They go up and then they disappear, and the eternal stars stay forever. And then there are people that are interested in neither but in money. That's a different proposition. I am too, but not that much. And so I'm saying that one of the things you need to decide about yourself as a human being, where are you in this sequence? Are you crazy about the eternal stars? The hermits and the saints really are. They really are. Or are you in love with the setting stars? Are you in love with mud too, as well as God? They're not opposites. So that's one of the things that I'm going to touch on in this thing, to try to find out what your relationship is to the eternal world. And what I'm going to do next, I'm going to set out what's called the esoteric view. I prefer the Persian view. The Persians are the oldest culture we have. One big mistake we made was to think the Greeks were it. The Greeks weren't it. The Persians are really it. They're the ones that had, the Persians had courtly love in 1500 BC. We got it in 1500 AD, only 3,000 years late. So I just say that what I've learned from tremendously in the last 10 years has been Persian culture. And the Persians and the Arabs are not the same. Persians have a culture before the Arabs, before Muhammad. And Hafez and Rumi all come out of that culture before Muhammad. That's why Rumi is so fantastically popular right now. You're looking at a culture that's really old and that didn't go through the murderous stuff that we did with killing everybody in the Middle Ages and so on. It's before the Pope. Well, anyway. So I'm just going to start telling you a few things that are connected with this view. And number one, the sea and water are a symbol of matter. The sea and water are not a symbol of intuition, they're a symbol of matter. That means that when you were born in your mother's womb, you were in water. So the whole problem is that the soul comes down from the eternal world and has to go into the womb and into water. Soul is not sure it wants to do that. Not sure at all it wants to do that. Whenever you're looking at water, you're really looking at something that's probably on this planet that's not on other planets. So this whole planet is connected with water. So therefore they will use various things along that thing. The watery cave means this world and all its enchantments. And the Romans and the Greeks used to have caves, along the shore, and they'd go in there. And they'd put images of the Virgin Mary there. That's right. Third one, they talk about a thing called the weary traveler. So the weary traveler, the traveler is weary because you come down from the eternal world and you go into this world of matter and you come out through your mother and then everything gets confused. And you can't even remember what you're here for. Then you get to be about 50. And then you begin to say, wasn't there something else besides income taxes? Wasn't there something else? kind of vaguely remember it. And so that's called the state of the weary traveler, in which you want to return, as Blake said, to the golden clime, that golden place where all travel is done. So after 50 or so, there's a certain longing in your body, which is to return. That's the idea with this. Question is how you do that. How long you're going to hang around in Florida before you return. They keep sending you hurricanes, you don't fucking get the idea. And that they approach over the water, by the way. Anyway, so so that's a very beautiful point of view, that it isn't that you get here and you're evil. That's the worst thing about certain forms of Christianity. That's not it at all. We just went into water, and then we got kind of watery, and we got kind of fond of music, and we're not evil. But if we get blocked, we don't know what to do. Is that right? So maybe we should kill a bunch of gypsies. Maybe that'd make us feel better. Those are all acts done by the weary traveler. Am I saying anything to you? And eventually, the weary traveler says, well, I guess I'm going back. All right, so that's when we can turn forward. Another thing that's interesting when you go into this thing is that you often run into beggar's rags. And the beggar's rags are your body. At a certain point, when you get through with your journey, when the body is no longer needed, it's just thrown away like a beggar throws away his rags. By the way, it's interesting that the people who know this best tend to burn up the bodies. Because if you bury it, it's in a wet earth. Well, it's not it. It's better to burn the body and let it go. To help the spirit go back to the climb. Do you understand what I'm saying? My wife went to Bali, and she was here for one of their funerals, and it's unbelievable. I mean, they take the little body, and they've got it there, and then everybody starts to throw it back and forth with each other. It's in a white sack. Everybody's throwing the body over there. Let's throw it over there. And it feels, not polite. But it's very polite. It's exactly what we're teaching this body to fly. Oh, but over there, you catch this? And then after they're done throwing the body around and everything, and there's a lot of humor and laughter, then they put it on the fire and burn it up. Another image is that the moist cloud is the body. Because when it was dry, when it came down, then it got mingled with water. And if someone looks at you, some spiritual being looks at you, sometimes they see only a moist cloud. Well, that's all right. I like that. And the soul takes, just to repeat this, the soul, when it's born, takes a watery envelope. That's another way of talking about the body. The soul takes on a watery envelope. So you are enclosed then in an envelope. The senses, the five senses, are little chinks in the envelope, so you can see out. That's our idea, and that's why when you look out, you see vast sunlight. Whoa, unbelievable. The senses are all holy. And the Catholic Church is wrong when it says seeing is bad and hearing is bad and fucking is bad. It's all a mistake. There weren't enough Persians when they were setting up Catholic Church. I like the way the Catholic Church always talks about the eternal world. I like that. And without them, we'd be in a lot of trouble. But souls are dry and hot, but after a while, moisture becomes delightful to the soul. It gets used to it. And that's why souls like to drink a lot. That's how a soul becomes alcoholic. It forgets its old dryness. It's interesting that they talk to someone who has gotten over being alcoholic. They say, he's dry now. So there's nothing wrong about an alcoholic. An alcoholic is someone who took the descent a little too seriously and really gets fond of moisture and liquid.
That's why they call it spirits.
That's right. And Jung always used to say, and this helped me a lot with my father, who was an alcoholic. Jung used to say, well, you must understand that The alcoholic loves a spirit, but simply gets the wrong spirit, which is called the earth spirit, which comes up like water from the earth in the form of alcohol, beer, wine. But that person still loves the spirit.
Comes from the earth.
Yeah. And that helped me with my father. That he was a spiritual man, but he chose the wrong spirit. Any one of us could do it, is that right? Any one of us could do it. Many of us have done it. So, it's not a big deal. But it's good. If you're going to end the weary traveler stuff, you have to get off the alcohol sooner or later and dry out a little bit. Horse that can talk. The horse's name is Falada. It's an Arab name. It's interesting. It's a German or Norwegian story, but the horse's name is Falada, which sounds Arabic. I'm going to give you a horse that can talk. I'm going to give you a maid that can help you. That'll be, after all, you are a princess. The soul is always a princess. And I'm going to give you a maid. And the third thing I'm going to give you is this. And she went out of the room and she pricked her finger and some drops of blood came, and she put 3 drops of blood on a beautiful little white handkerchief and gave it to her daughter and said, put this in your breast. Put this in here and keep it. It'll help you. It'll give you remember, so you'll remember me. So those are the 3 gifts that she got. So she got on her horse, and she had a beautiful horse, Falada. And the maid had an ugly old rag, right? An old beat-up horse, kind of a farm horse. And so they started out. Okay, the princess said, when they'd been traveling a few hours, I'm thirsty. Would you get me some water? You hear it? Soul is getting thirsty. And the maid says, I'm not your damn maid anymore. We're not with your mother now. You want to get water, you get it yourself. She can't believe that. But she gets off her horse and she goes and lies down next to a stream and puts her head down and drinks. Then she comes back, and a few miles later she said, oh, I'm so thirsty. Would you give me some water? And the maid says, get your own water. I'm not doing that for you. So she gets off, puts her head down by the water, and then, because she's so interested in drinking, she doesn't notice that the little handkerchief with the drops of blood has floated down the river. But the maid saw it. And she knew that her power she had from her mother was gone. So what did she do? As soon as they got ready to get on the horse, she said, I'm taking your horse. You take the old rag. I'm going to take your horse. And if you don't like it, I'll kill you right now. Well, I don't know what that is. We can speculate about it. But do you feel how the soul is losing its power as it comes down? I mean, you didn't look so great when you were just born, you know. Red-faced little bastard, all pink and crying. What are you crying about? I lost my horse! All right, John, it's your turn. We'll continue this tomorrow or whenever. That's the beginning of the story. Now we're going to have something sensible by John Lee.
I wouldn't count on it.
Thank you.
10:30?